today I want to do a quick demonstration of how I make my pet snuggles. This is a crocheted little blanket that I make to donate to different animal shelters so that different kinds of animals have some nice little comfy bed that they can sleep on. So they're relatively simple to make. It's crochet. I use worsted weight yarn and I hold 2 strands of yarn together. I use a 6mm crochet hook. I honestly have to go and check and see what that is in US sizing, but I'll post that down below. And I'll also post the link to, well, not the link to the pattern. I will post in the down bar down below. I will post the pattern. So to do this, first off, you chain 45. So to start off, I always just start off with a little slip knot and chain 45. And 45. So the initial row we're going to do double crochet. So it's using US terminology, not UK terminology, so US terminology. So double crochet around the hook once, and I want to do the first double crochet in the 4th chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So pop that over here, and then we'll double crochet in each of the chains along the way. Where was I? Okay, so we go all the way to the very end here. Sorry about that, the yarn was hung up. Okay, so now we're going to have, I just want to do a quick count. So we have our first row done. So counting the chain stitches initially. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 43 stitches across the bottom, counting this as one of our stitches. So to continue on to the second row, what I typically do is I chain 2. I find that my chain stitches are fairly tall, and this is going to count as our first stitch going back on the next row. So we have that, turn it around, then we're going to start doing a double crochet in each of the stitches from the previous row. So this very first one here, we'll skip that one and we'll go and do the first double crochet, because this chain 2 or chain 3 if you if your chain stitches are a little bit shorter. A lot of people like to do chain 3, but my own personal preference is chain 2. So this counts as our first stitch. So we'll skip this first spot. We'll do a double crochet in the top of the second stitch here, and then continuing on, we will go and do a double crochet in each and every double crochet all the way to the end of the row. And I'll either fast forward through this or I'll edit this portion out. You don't need to sit there and watch me do the double crochet in each and every one of these. And I'll join you again once I get close to the end. So as we get closer to the end of the row, we continue to do our double crochet in each stitch. And now it's important to note when we get to the end here, this stitch we've done is in the top of this double crochet. So you notice that? And there's still this one at the end where we initially did our initial chain, and then we did our first double crochet in the 4th chain. So these 3 stitches count as one. So we have to make sure that we include a stitch here. Otherwise, we're going to end up with this getting slowly shorter and shorter each time we do a row. So again, once you get to, you're ready to start row 3, I chain 2, you might want to chain 3. And again, you do not go into this very first stitch here, but you go into the second one. So your chain 2 is going to be lined up with this first stitch. The one that you make is going to be lined up as your second stitch. So again, you continue on until you get to the very end again. And for these pet snuggles, I tend to make them, let me just show you how the size this is. Doesn't quite fit in here. Let's just take a tape measure and this one is about 17 inches. So I find that the squares tend to be about 15 to 17 inches square, depending on how loose or tightly I'm crocheting that particular day, and also depending on the weight of the particular worsted weight yarn that I'm using. I find that different brands have slightly different weights, and what I tend to do is I start with the chain 45, so I end up with 43 stitches, or 43 double crochets along the way. And then what I tend to do is I will do a total of 22 rows. So right now I've got row 1, and then row 2 we've come back and we've just started on row 3. So I'll tend to do 22 rows. And that tends to give me a square roughly 15 to 17 inches square. So these are a nice size, I find, for making pet snuggles for cats. They're a nice size. If I was making for a dog, I would make it quite a bit larger, depending on the size of the dog. A small dog, a very small dog might be okay with this, but I would more than likely start with maybe even double this size. And instead of doing 45, maybe I would do 90 chain stitches initially, or maybe 65. It's very flexible pattern. You can play around with the sizing however you like. You might find that your stitching is either too loose or too tight using the particular size crochet hook that I use. So again, I use a 6mm with 2 strands of worsted weight yarn. Your mileage could easily vary. You might want to use a smaller crochet hook, a larger crochet hook. I don't think the kitty cats at the pet shelters are really going to, or the different animal shelters are really going to mind if your gauge is tight or if it's loose. They're probably going to be very happy to have just a nice little snuggly blanket to rest on. So I'll add in a little video clip with a few of these that I've made that I have in a little stack. I think when you looked at if you watched my craft room, messy craft room tour, I showed you, I said there was a little pile of stuff that I was going to show you another day. Today's the day I'll show you some of those. And I tend to use just whatever yarn I have. I do tend to, for these, I didn't mention this already, I tend to use acrylic yarns for this. Whatever brand it is, I'm not fussy with it. I want something that is going to be easy to care for, that individuals that are caring for animals in pet shelters can just throw them through the washer, throw them through the dryer. They don't have to worry about whether it's 100% wool. And if they wash and dry it with everything else, the thing's going to go from this size, and it's going to end up being just like a tiny little blanket once they put it through the washer and dryer and they felted the poor thing. So I do use acrylic yarns for this. I have a bunch in my stash from quite a few years ago. I tend to use all kinds of weird and wonderful color combinations. As far as I know, cats and dogs are not fussy about what color their blankets are that they get to snuggle on. I tend to use scraps. Some of them, if I run out of one yarn partway through, I just simply grab another skein or a ball of acrylic yarn and I just add it on and keep on going. So some of the ones you'll see that I'll show you in just a bit, some of the ones you'll see that I've made in the past are going to be multicolored. Some of them are kind of loud. Some of them are a more subtle color combination. Whatever works, doesn't matter. It's something very good to use up. It's a nice little charity project that I really enjoy working on. What else did I want to say about these? That might be it.